What's up, guys? On this week's episode, we have one of my greatest mentors and my father-in-law, Mr. Tim Parker. Tim has lived in Paulding and Cobb, Georgia his entire life and has owned a business in this area for over 40 years. He gives us insight onto what it's like to own a successful business that long, how to develop our character further, and so much more. We hope you guys gain as much as we did off this week's episode. Now let's get to the show. All right, so today we have my father-in-law, Tim Parker, on the show, and Tim's been in business since 1977?
Yeah, 41 years.
41 years, so I had to get him on here and have him give us some insight into what it's like to grow a successful business and, you know, some of those struggles. We're always talking about the grind and all that, some of the struggles he may have endured on his journey to where he's at now. And I don't want to give too much away, but this man's been responsible for raising 8 or 9 kids. You know, he's lived in Cobb and Paulding County his entire life, and he's been an extreme mentor to me at all times, and I'm just so thankful to know him. So Tim, thanks for coming in, man. Thanks for being here. Me, Brent, and Rob are all just pumped that you were able to make it happen today, and we're excited to hear about you. So
add another kid to the raising too. He raised you essentially.
Yeah, he helped.
He helped a lot, man. Yeah. And Ryan lived with him for a little bit.
I mean, he played a big part.
Yeah,
in your life.
he's had a giving heart since the day I knew him, and I don't want to tell you what his wife first said to me, but he always had love, and it was always just awesome. It's a blessing to be a part of his family, and it's also a blessing to have him one phone call away at all times. So thanks for that. And just want to dig in. I want you to tell us a little bit about, you know, where you came from and kind of how you've made it to where you are today, what you view maybe the world as or your life as today, and, you know, how the experiences and what you went through helped you gain that perspective. Mm-hmm. Because for me, what you say on a weekly, daily basis, for me, you know, sometimes it's like that voice for the week that I'm like, oh, okay, thank God he said that this week, because if he hadn't, I might have thought something different by the end of it, you know. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of good character points and a lot of things that you've helped me with. So just kind of dig in, and I guess start back in the day.
Let's hear the beginning.
Yeah, let's hear the beginning.
Okay. Well, appreciate being asked to come here. It's an honor. You know, as a child, I feel like my childhood has a lot to do with all the different things that happened in my younger years, all the way up through college. Has a lot to do with how I run my business and just who I am as a father and as a man now. So, but my dad was probably not. You know, he loved me. There's no doubt about that. But he wasn't the model of the father and the man that I wanted to be. You know, so my mother always had us in church coming up, and that ends up being, and to this day I love Jesus, and that's a part. So I was raised in an area called Marietta Place, is projects back in Marietta. Across the street, Heck Field was an old baseball field, and they had the boys club in there. Perry Palm was across the street, so I could walk to those ballparks and play baseball. And when you came up in the Marietta Place, like you either came out of that tough and pretty good athlete because those ballparks were right there, and pretty good guy because you got around some good men that were coaching you, or you come out of that place tough and angry and bitter and just a mean guy, you know. So I like to think I came out of there, and I played a lot of baseball, played football all through that boys club there, and just knew through my mom having me in church and the parts I was picking up, you know, in Sunday school that we were always in, that I just didn't want to be. I just knew then I didn't want, even though I, you know, had a few scraps and realized, man, you know, I can take care of myself and do this type. You just kind of, and had big brothers. They were tough, and, you know, gosh, it just, I'm just thankful for my mom having me in church, because I came out of there with the kind of attitude of, hey, I want to be a leader, a good guy. But it also gave me, and still to this day, I met a lot of great people And I realize that to this day, there's a lot of people without a lot of money in the bank that get up every day and do the best they can, and they're good, humble people.
Oh yeah.
And I tell you, to this day, I guess I probably identify myself more there than I do as a reasonably successful business guy. And, you look back at things, and when you're going through them, you think, man, I can remember being on a baseball team, having a great guy coach it, and a guy's dad, and maybe get invited to a spend the night party, and I'd be like, man, there's plenty of food in this house. There's a pantry. I mean, I'm talking about I was raised sometimes where I went to bed with a hungry belly. It just wasn't my dad's priority to just make sure that whatever assets he had all came home. And he was the kind of guy, he come fix your tire in the middle of the night if you were broke down, a good dad in that way or something like that. But as far as just taking care of his family and stuff, it really taught me kind of the man I didn't want to be. But by being in athletics and things like that, and just loving football, baseball, that was kind of my out. Got a scholarship, went to Georgia Tech, full football ride. I graduated high school in 1977. Stayed down there, got out of Tech. Started my very first job out of Georgia Tech was actually with the business end of Kmart Corporation. I don't think I've ever told you that, Alex, in all the million questions you've asked me. I don't think, but I went to work with Kmart. Stayed there about a year. I don't know. Just didn't enjoy it. Just didn't have. And I think some of that was something in me saying, hey, I want my own version of something. I didn't think if it was like Kmart, I was thinking, well, I can sell T-shirts somewhere or something. I was thinking that I could had some confidence going, and then
You want to be a business owner.
I did. I felt like that. Yeah, I just felt like that was something that. So left Kmart. Actually went to work at one time for Milliken Carpet, training in a management position. Just dreaded walking in that building every day. It just wasn't for me. Well, my father, during this time, him and his sister owned a gas station, an old-time gas station where I worked there as a young man, pumped gas, changing oil, we all worked as children. And there was a crew of guys that would come in there, and they were from Copper Hill, Tennessee, and they would come in, and my dad's gas station was doing pretty well, and he was renting. I remember the U-Haul corporate renting U-Hauls, and every once in a while, me and my brother, when I was 15, my brother was 16, because we had U-Hauls. My dad would let us be the moving people, and he would broker deals, and I was 15. Me and my brother went to Cincinnati, Ohio in a U-Haul. I'm 15, my brother's 16, moved an entire load of furniture up there. God. And I think about my children now, or my children I've raised, saying, hey, jump in this U-Haul and drive to Cincinnati at 15 and take somebody 16 with you. And we were, one thing my era, of not everybody, but the way I was raised, you kind of became a man pretty quick, and in far as just my dad he just said they're an asset to bring me in some money, and we never made a lot of money out of it, but that's just what spurred off of him having that business. And I'd work at that gas station sometimes, and here I am, an educated guy, not really, just knowing something's missing. I'm not hadn't found what I really want to do, and thought about going back to school, getting educated, coaching. I always enjoyed sports. But these guys would come in there, and my dad would cash their check, and they'd be pretty large checks. And I just asked them, I said, what do you guys do? And they said, we're from Copper Hill, we hang sheetrock. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what is sheetrock, you know? And they tell me, and they're sitting there. And so I just out of the blue one day said, y'all need to hire anybody? And you know, they kind of looked and they said, well, you're big enough and strong enough, you know, look like it's because you got to. It's come a long way in the years, but you used to have to just hold it over your head and get nails in it and do all this stuff. You had to be pretty stout to do it day in and day out. And went to work for those guys out of Carper Hill, Tennessee, 1981 for $3.25 an hour.
Wow. Let's go.
Sure did. And wow. I mean, you talking about 50 hours a week for $150 or something, you know, and
like
hanging sheetrock. And I mean, but it was just amazing that I was looking at that and I was watching what they were doing, and some of the stuff I had learned at Tech, you know, just some of the math and stuff, and I'm watching these guys who some of them didn't have a height, but knowing how to cut these angles, and they had been taught, but I pretty well knew quicker ways and better ways a little bit. I just felt like, so I hung with it for about 2 years with those guys, was faithful. And then I said, guys, I'm breaking off. My brother was managing a place here in town. It used to be a legend in Marietta. It's called the Hungry Fisherman. Had a good job over there, and loved my brother very much, Jim. And I said, hey, I'm gonna get into sheetrock hanging. You want to go in with me? He's like, man, I don't know. I got a pretty good job. I said, come on. So he left Hungry Fisherman, good career, but they were working him a lot. And so me and him took off in the sheetrock business. And you know, we just worked hard. I mean, usually 7 days a week, and we were learning kind of as we went, made a few connections, met a few people along the way who were builders that just liked that we had a great attitude about what we did. We were kind of, you know, I kind of ended up being sort of the leader of our little two-man thing, and a couple of them started saying, well, do you know how to finish sheetrock? Well, you know, I thought, okay, to really get this business, gotta learn that aspect of it. Just when I was making pretty good money, you know, learned enough to do it and thought, boy, this is pretty good money, pay my bills now. Realized, oh, I got to drop back to learn this side of the trade. And so I started figuring out, how in the world am I going to do that? So we hired another guy, trained him. So my brother and him were doing, and I was paying them an agreed amount, but I was still making a little extra money from them to help while I went back and learned how to do the finishing end of drywall.
And not to interrupt, but it's like 1983. How do you get leads? How do you go knock doors or just talk to these builders?
You know what?
Real quick, guys, this is Rob with the Wheeling Agency. I just wanted to reach out to y'all. We've been in business a little over 3 years here in Paulding County. We take pride in serving our community, so next time you're in the need for some insurance, give us a call and reach out. Now get back to the show.
Their building then there was probably 10% of what's out there now. It was just, and you didn't, my business now works 12 counties around everywhere. I don't know what time we got here, 11 o'clock this morning. I've been to Jasper, Georgia, stopped by Talking Rock, Georgia, came through Cartersville, all to check jobs, and here at 11 o'clock. So it's very spread out now, but it used to be when it started, you know, it wasn't like that. There's just guys that had little pockets of building, and West Cobb was just coming up. East Cobb was just exploding.
That's hard to believe, man.
There's just cool things going on around here, and you didn't have the kind of business I have now. Like back then, you know, total sales might be $100,000 versus
a year.
Yes, versus, you know, but I mean, we were making a pretty good living, you know, and I bought my first house when I was about 27 years old, and, you know, but would work for builders, and I would always negotiate and say, would you be interested in us doing a turnkey service? And they're saying, well, we've always bought our own sheetrock. I say, well, I buy I'm starting to buy a pretty good Bic. I can probably get it cheaper than you can. And we kind of started, they didn't trust us with that. And then we started where we'd warranty the product, and we started hiring people in a warranty division. Just kept making growth, but it seemed like I was keeping myself broke the whole time. So how it felt, it really did. Till I always tell Alex when we talk, I said I felt never felt like I had a dollar till I broke to 40-something years old. Before I'd question a lot of my decisions and say, what if I'd have just stayed working for those guys? What would I be making now or something? And but just kept working at it, and 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 really the part of me that I refer to things as my mother having me in church, and just I've always worked for people, and I say this, and some people are like, we don't want to hear it, or maybe they welcome it, but I always speak about, the scripture of working. When you work for somebody, work as if you're working for the Lord, and my relationship kind of just out of need and everything for the Lord, what really was progressing into my adult life. And I think just the ethics, the things that Jesus stands for a man to be, to me, and helped me. I kind of quit worrying about, was I going to be a wealthy guy, or I just wanted to do a good job, grow my business in a way, and it's what made me feel good at night. If I could add on a builder, and people were like, golly, we thought you'd be like a bridge engineer or something by now or something, but it just didn't,
hanging sheetrock.
I being an old athlete, I liked the physical part of it, where I was doing that. And
you just said something right there that I have to intervene, because this man, since I was 18, 17 years old, there's been a key word that he always used, and it was integrity. When did you start feeling that integrity pop up in your life? Like right now, you're talking about being 27, buying a house. Your mom had you in church as a kid. When did you start saying, man, I'm Tim Parker, and I know how life was, but I'm going to live an integral life? Were you 8? Were you a teenager? Or did it take being a business owner and seeing some things change to get there?
Yeah, I would say really, I had it to some degree, but as you get into, I tell you, this is something, may have shared this, but biggest job I guess this was maybe 90, 89, and I stepped out in Marietta, and I said, I'm going to bid a set of apartments, a full set of apartments. And that was a big thing, and I probably had, I had about just enough money to break even on the thing, so I was going to need my draw. I mean, when I say break even, I barely had enough to fund till my money started coming in. And first set of apartments, now we're talking about 300 apartments, and I'd set up my creditors to furnish the drywall, and houses don't have firewalls in the attics because they're a space of amount of feet apart where they don't make you build a firewall, because the fire's probably not going to jump
to the other house.
Yeah. When you got apartments, you have to build, do fire caulk, all this stuff. And I tell you, there I was just wide open, but no one had ever taught me that. And so I missed the attics on these things. And I did about 2 buildings of these things, and they were paying me, but when it come to the point where they were getting their final inspections, the inspector come out there and said, man, nobody's done these attics. So I did that job, and when I say it, I thought, this is, I got to do this. That they weren't going to, I could either ruin my business name, but I had pretty good help. My brother's always been loyal to me, but we worked after we were done, did other jobs too, but I did that. I did that apartment job, and because of that, I finished it, landed, still work for the same GC nearly 40 years later, have went on and on and on and learned a valuable lesson. But I think I did that job at about a negative $100,000. And it would have been more than that, but we just got in there and did the work ourselves.
You were making more than $350 an hour then, right?
Yeah.
And that, what year was that? 80s?
That was been 89,
89.
90.
That was a lot of money in
You
89.
did the right thing.
Yeah, I did. I didn't bail on it. And I think right then I realized then, you know, man, I'm just going to have to figure this out because this is going to spread like wildfire. I had just opened up on Sandtown Road, right across from these apartments, opened up, little house was for rent there, had my sign hung up, you know, first little office. It was like 3 people in one house. They turned into a little office, and I just thought, man, this is, you know, I got to hang with this and get it done. But we got it done, and then, you know, we were doing other things, and the good thing about it, we had that apartment. It's a funny thing. You got to grow your company, you need help. To get the help, you got to have the work. Right. You got to go get the work first to attract the help. And it's just this balance of how much money you got to be careful, because you can take on too much and outrun your money, and suddenly you can't pay a bill and you're cut off at the supply house. So it was a constant, because, as I said, I didn't have any member of my family or anything that was financially going to back me or help me or anything like that. But we just kept staying at it, and word passed around, and I'll never forget. I started working for Pulte Homes. That would have been about 92. Pulte Homes had come to Atlanta, and boy, they were growing like crazy. And at the time, I had hair down to about my tailbone.
Nice.
And,
That's my inspiration.
And I did. I really did. I had a beard about the here, you know. But I was just, I don't know. I was riding a Harley and a bunch of good guys and stuff. And but I remember going in and meeting Bill Pulte, or I hadn't met him. We were sitting at a table, and he actually said, "Who is Tim Parker?" And I said, he said, "I've been hearing a lot of good things about your drywall company." And I was sitting there. Now, this probably wouldn't fly now, but he looked at me. He said, "I tell you what," he said, "you go get your hair cut and trim up and clean up." He's an old military base guy, and he said, "I'm gonna really turn you on to some work." You know what I mean? He said, "Because I like your work. I like the way you're on time." He said, you send us money back if we overpaid you. That's the integrity piece. And he said, "We noticed that." You know what I mean? He said, "It happens because they were a growing company too."
So that integrity paid off.
Yeah. So I went in to hire him, and you know, I remember I'd never heard of this. They cut so much hair off. They said, "Can we donate this to a wig or some kind of deal?" Or they're using it for people who had cancer to make wigs. I had that much hair laying in the floor, cut my beard off, went down to a goatee, and you know, I said so. A bunch of guys I rode Harley. They were like, "Man, you are selling out." I was like, "No, I'm trying to make a good living for my family, you know." And but I got in with Pulte. They were real good, you know. I'd say that was the first company that kind of thought enough of us. They'd let us turn in if we had to a little head time. Picked up Beezer, picked up you know. So here we are today, you know, probably 30 to 45 million a year in sales. Now, I did kind of skip by. We had the 08, 09 debacle in there where the financial world basically collapsed, and we were sitting well. And fortunately, during this time in the drywall business, I will say another thing is I never had a line of credit. I never borrowed any money. I I lived well below my means.
That's heat.
Yeah, I did. I lived, and I knew people'd see me out on the job, and I was driving an old Dodge truck, and my foremen were driving better trucks than I was, but that was their option to go buy them a truck if they wanted to with their pay. I was kind of doing a little delayed self-gratification thing, you know, and
Yes.
and
Now that we're on this topic,
Yep.
when I hear delayed gratification and when I hear, living below your means, it's obvious that a lot of people nowadays don't have that ability, and sometimes it's out of force, but sometimes it's because they really just can't discipline themselves. What is your viewpoint on that and doing it for so many years? Because this guy tells me that, tell him that he's giving me comments where he was driving like a truck that was 30 years older than everybody else. Everybody's pulling up in their brand new truck, and they're like, why do you make way more than I do, but you're driving that piece of crap? And he's like, well, I'm just going to live below my means.
yeah. Well, one reason they weren't thinking about is I was the guy that was going to pay them that week, so I was, I kind of I knew the finances of the business, and I just didn't have the fat in the profits yet to ride around the new truck. So it was that responsible decision of owning your own business. And there's key decisions, and I will say this: being a business owner, you've got to be the guy that can sometimes have that mentality where it's okay if someone working for you looks like they're doing better than you. I mean, more power to them. I hope, Lord, I'm paying them. I put them in this position, and that's the going rate of pay that I need to pay to have a quality guy there. But the things I'm doing and I'm putting back into my business and growing might not allow me to take out the amount of money. I might be making less money than a guy I'm paying, but I see down the road,
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, delayed self-gratification. If you can see those pieces, and so by operating my business that way for years, I've probably been in business 25 years, and we were doing, we were doing 35 million a year. And here come this downturn in '08. I never seen anything like it. All of a sudden, builders just stopped paying, and during that phase right there, guys, it was funny. Guys that I thought wouldn't pay me, that I would have thought they paid, and they were kind of like me driving the older truck. They paid but some huge publicly traded companies didn't pay us. And so, we looked around, and we were 6 months into that thing, and we had bankruptcies come in, and we had already paid most of the material, most of the labor, and then we had bankruptcies hit us for $2.8 million that came in, and company's probably worth 4 or 5 million then, so it was pretty catastrophic. And then I got suppliers calling me going, when you going to pay us? When you going to pay us? And I'm like, I thought I was going to pay you. But I mean, I tell you a story that's just unbelievable. I won't name the builders, but I was working for this company, and they had stretched me out, and I trust them. They hadn't paid us. They said, that was one of the worst times in business. There was just guys that everything was selling. Banks were giving them all the money they wanted, and
The spigot turned off.
the spigot turned off, and then suddenly the 51-foot boat on the Tennessee River, the condo, everything had them leveraged. They were, and another thing about being in business, watch your debt. I've always been a person who frowned on debt. I tell you, debt will take you under, because you're going to have down times in business where you better, the old nest egg, you better. I mean, because I've seen it. And okay, so now we're all the way back to my humble raising of not having a lot. And so, people tease me and they say, man, have you ever traveled out of the country? I'm like, no, I probably should. I haven't just trip to Panama City, and that's about it. All you know, take that vacation, take the family to Panama City or something, go back to work. But
Delayed gratification.
yeah, and you know, so that all just to say, watch your debt, watch your lifestyle. But you know, I remember my and I've got people that have been working for me. I'd say the average employee in my company has at least 20 years now. Wow. At least. Got some 35-year people. My brother, who has experienced diabetes, both double amputee, still works for me in a capacity in the office. He's been with me since the first day. You know, my office manager, she's been with me 29 years. My general manager, he's been with me 32 years. So, wow. And these people have all raised families, have all done well. And another good point, things are popping in my head as I'm talking here is as your company becomes successful, watch getting too greedy with your money with people that you need to stay working for you, because they're good people. They show up. They're all bought in. Share the good times with them.
Reward them.
That's right. Reward them. Show them you care about them, that you care about their families. You know, don't just line your pockets with money. And I mean, because you'll never regret that. Loyal people that stay with you. I can't tell you how many people say, I mean, they're kidding around, but they'll say, hey, we just love Suzanne in your office. We wouldn't change drywall companies ever because she's so good at what she does.
Wow. Amen.
You know, running my office. And they do mean it. You know, she's so good. She takes care of stuff. She fits. So it just pays off tremendously down the road to, as people show that you can, that they're the ones that like I said, they bought into what you're doing. They care about your family. You care about their family. That'll help your business grow and maintain.
That's so good.
Man. Yeah, it is. And then you just, my office manager, she's no relation to me. Every one of my children think of her as Aunt Suzanne. Wow. You know, because she's been with some of them, they were just, you know,
that's so
just
cool.
babies, you
That's
know,
so cool.
and that's a good feeling. That's a great thing about being self-employed, is you get those situations to do that, and versus working for some business that is just no personalism or anything. Right. And you know, but during that downturn time, it was really rough, and we had opportunities where lawyers were saying, I tell you what, because I consulted some attorneys about how to collect my money, and they said it's not going to. The banks are coming after them. The banks have overlent. You know, it was just a crazy time where there's just too much money out there flowing around, and when, like I said, when that spigot turned off, it was off, and guys couldn't. All of a sudden, their $90,000 boat was worth about $30,000, and wow. Just negative. This assets, the non-performing assets, just and but
I'm so glad I was in high school when that was happening.
I tell you,
yeah, me too. I'd have been bought in.
Let's take a break.
Okay.
Quick.
Hey, real quick. I've been a part of Town Club Realty for right at 3 years, and Brent and I are always trying to grow our team. If you have any interest in getting into real estate, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. Now back to the show.
You got to bash the banks, but the banks needed bashing back then. They lent money to people they shouldn't have lent money. People that paid their bills, that I never had a day late on a single loan of anything. Had 17 houses out there. I shouldn't have that many to this day. Since then, I've never built a house and used anybody's money but my own. It made me go from building 15 at a time to 3 at a time. But I'm not, you know what I mean? And they come by all the time and say, hey, let's open you up a line. Literally, I'm not joking. A bank came by last week and said, well, we could probably put you a $45 million line in place. I said, dude, I looked at him, I said, y'all lost your mind again? You think I'm worth $45 million? I mean, you know, I said, thank you, but no thanks. You know what I mean?
Let me get $1 million of that.
I said, you know what? Show me where to sign, pal.
I tell you what, you think that too.
Hey, you're right.
Till you go through 08.
I was just joking.
But I never missed a payment. I'm in a subdivision. got 2 other builders. They go under, living a little too high on the hog, can't make their notes, foreclosures. I'm sitting here trying to sell my house, keep them looking pretty, never missed a payment. The bank starts selling off the houses they foreclosed for what I've got in my lot.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, I owe y'all the money. You're killing me.
Yeah.
And then they come in and go, you know what? We ran a new loan to value. Now they're my partners. They set the loan to value initially because of what happened. My loan's still good. Haven't missed a payment. Haven't been late. They said, we're going to call your loans. They want my house to sell off to their buddies, packaging them up. I mean, banks were horrible then. That's when I saw, I don't want to get into all that, that the government allows some different things for that group. You know what I mean?
They bailed them all out.
Man,
bailed them all
it's
out.
where I saw the difference in working class people that made a little money and truly wealthy people that got the, you know what I mean? It made me sick. And I don't even want to be in that club ever.
No.
Ever. You know what I mean?
And
That
I
had
don't
to
care.
be stressful though, that time of life.
That was right. Like I said, all that was going on, and went down to collect $500,000 from someone who said they called us and said we'll pay you this much of $1 million, and then I'm sitting here about to get on the interstate, and my office called and said, hey, they called and said they're filing bankruptcy, and I was about to get on I-75 right there at by Kennesaw College on Chastain Road, and all the air went out of my truck. I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm like, it scared the shit. I'm like, I can't catch a breath. You know what I mean? I was like, I couldn't catch it. And I pulled in, I got out of my truck and I was kind of stumbling. A Kennesaw police officer, security guy came over. He said, you been drinking? I said, no. I said, that's got some really bad news. I said, told him. He put a blood pressure cut. He's like, oh, crap, we got to call an ambulance. Ambulance came. They gave me nitroglycerin and said, you're having a heart attack. Within 24 hours, they done cut into me. I was at the hospital, said, this and this, and said, man, we've never seen a panic attack mimic a heart attack this bad. Wow. Stayed in the hospital 2 days with a stent, but they said, your heart's as healthy as anybody's in here. Good news to know that after they done.
So it was a panic attack.
It was a panic attack of just, and I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I knew the Lord. I mean, I know the end. I know everything was going to be okay, but I just could not, when I got that news and so much other stuff, because people aren't paying me, and I'm realizing I'm adding up all the money, and I'm going, supply houses are calling me. They fronted me material. I paid them some, but I hadn't paid because you're waiting to get paid to pay it. And, it just, but anyway, long story, we paid every bit of labor, every bit of material, every dollar, every supply house that I owed got paid, everything. It took a while to do it. And I worked kind of like that first set of apartments where we missed. I worked for a lot less margin for the next 5 years, get everybody squared up. But those same supply houses, they took me into Charlotte. They had these they took me into Greenville. They took me into Augusta, Georgia. Anywhere there was a base, Redstone Artillery up there in Huntsville, all
Alabama.
these, that's where little pockets of sales were. They took me with them. So I kept my business open.
That's amazing. So the integrity paid off again.
Paid
Going
off
back
again.
to that, the integrity paid off.
Are we filming?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay.
So-
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Basically, we
That's the best thing.
basically we just got all
So
that.
something that some really cool story. Me and Alex became really close friends, business partners, and we probably a year into our friendship realized that your father-in-law and my dad grew up on like the same street and played Little League baseball together. It was like, wow, that's so cool. Because you're honestly the first person that I've ever met that like grew up in my dad's neighborhood. Because like you said earlier, it was a rough neighborhood. And not a lot of people got out of there without either being really hard and really good or really hard and really bad, like you said. But I can really understand the poverty that you were around.
Yeah.
And, very similar to my dad. I mean, it was truly a poverty story. And my dad, similar to you, and my mom had to bust their butts to get us into the lower middle class. Like it was it was a grind just to get to that point. So with similar upbringing to my dad, how do you think having an upbringing like that made you like have more drive? Because we talk about it often. There's a lot of people who have everything handed to them on a silver platter, and then they don't have that drive. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So I think there's something to be said about having that humble beginnings, and people that I look up to, and successful people. A lot of successful people started with nothing. Mm-hmm. What do you think? What do you think the common ground is there in that?
Yeah, you know, I try to be careful in my 7 children I mean, I definitely raise my children in a comfortable fashion, but I always remember, you know, if I think when you've kind of got it in your head, oh yeah, they're not going to let me collapse. They're not going to let me fall. And you know, it's just you and you know, it's, I don't know if you'd call it tough love or whatever, but there needs to be some point where you realize, hey, you know, I've got to be accountable for my actions, my decisions, staying in school, how I act at my job, how I do, you know, the integrity piece of, because I just knew that I could wind up. It was such a place where I just said, you know, I see through hard work, and that it didn't take me long, even when I wasn't making much money, to go, people respect people who do what they say they'll do and show up and do it for a price and give it their best. People like that. That's a way to grow a business, right? And along with doing that, that's the route I chose. Along with doing that, I had friends who had what, you know, way better life, maybe a little silver spoon type thing that, you know, honestly, some of them to this day have never lived up or to their potential because they've never pushed theirself or had to, because they were comfortable with, I'm still going to eat well, because their parents provided it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
we see it happen all the time, and it's something that, you know, as like you said, raising kids, it's a hard balance because you want them to be comfortable, but at the same time, you want them to have that drive.
It absolutely.
So it's a tough balance.
It really is. I think about it. I'll pray about it. It's a place where you definitely have to be careful because you love your kids so much. You want them to have so much, and you know, it is finding that balance where you go, man. I remember. I mean, I you know, when we talk about mine and your dad's time, he probably tell you, I'll never forget just wishing that I had something, that I wish there was something in the kitchen to go eat. Yeah. You know, because I was hungry and I was wanting to get up and go to school and eat. And, you know, the kids now, oh, you know, pack my lunch. I don't want to eat the school lunchroom. I loved the school food. I thought that was gourmet eating, you know. But, you know, I definitely would warn young parents and of watching that, and it's you know, they'll say you prepare the child for the road or the road for the child. Yeah, you know what I mean. So
it's so true.
Yeah,
but I mean that's such a good lesson to like, because you can't. It's hard to. That's why God is so good, and He knows what He's doing. Because for me personally, if I would have had a millionaire dad, I probably would have been a turd. You know what I mean? Like, and He knew what He was doing in my life, and my dad truly was like a chain breaker.
Yeah.
And he, because of his love with God, because of all that. So I think there's a lot to be said about the relationship with God that you've talked about a lot. But I think you said something that was really powerful to me just then. Like, you pray about how you're raising your kids.
I do.
Because that, I mean, you almost need God to, I mean, obviously, but you need Him to help that situation when there's a lot of wealth and you got these kids that you don't want to spoil rotten.
Yeah,
you know?
It is, because and it's just the fact of I think properly raising your kids with the dependence on Jesus that that money's not the answer.
That's right.
You know, money. I mean, the money's. If you're blessed to have money, is your kids realizing they're, you know, tithe with that money properly, do the right things. I mean, and I will say when I look back at my business sometimes, and I mean when 2/3, I was 52 years old during that big downturn. You know, 2/3 of all my work got taken away, my savings, everything. And when I say at a 2.8, we had that in the bank. It was there. It was our money. I wasn't borrowing money. We invested it.
So you
Back
had
in
2.8 million and basically
I just lost it. It's gone. Yeah, it was gone. I was my own bank, you know, and in doing that, and then you know, so we when things started getting a little better, I told everybody we all got together. I had to let a few people go, but kept the key group together, and you know, kind of right-sized everybody's pay, my pay, everybody's pay, got right-sized, left a certain amount of money in the bank, said, guys, here's what I got. We're going to throw at this thing. And that's what we went into it with about 010. We got, because we chose to pay our supply bills, do the right thing. We didn't lawyer up, you know, bankrupt on anybody. That was a tough decision because, you know, there were laws in place that said, hey, I'm not getting paid, so I don't have to pay. But when you've got people that work for you and you know their families, man, you got to pay. You know what I'm saying? I would have sold. I mean, that's just, you know, that's that piece, man, and that's Jesus holding you accountable and letting you know. And I'll tell you, making the right decision in business because of biblical reasons, I've been on my knees in my closet during that time in tears, just thinking, you know, this is, you know, how am I going to get through that? I went to a phase where I thought, do people think I mismanaged? Do they not realize, you know, but, you know, the Lord said, get up and be a man, what I created you to be. And I will bless you. And I mean, I'm just telling you, you know, Lord is faithful. So, to me, being successful in business and enjoying your success, and one of the biggest things you can do for your children, in my opinion, besides the input of not just chasing a dollar, is raising them in a spiritual way. Yeah. I mean, I think because I tell you, in this world right now, it's needed. My bank account, like what I'm counting on, is the promises of Jesus. You know what I mean?
Amen.
That's 100%. So.
That's so good.
And he described that time when he was 52. He told me he picked himself up by his bootstraps.
Oh yeah, we got back to work.
That's exactly what it is. We had another guy on our show recently. His name is John Watkins, and he had talked about doing erosion control during the downturn and how he had to make an adjustment himself in business because when his work had dried up too. So it's just so cool because, in my opinion, man, we're all 30s and around there, and it's like that was 14 years ago. That was however many years ago. And I just know that that's going to happen again. This world is cyclical. It goes up and down. And so to hear these men that can get through it like that, and to hear, you know, these 2 ways in the past month that we get to hear that someone made an adjustment and got through such a tough time.
Pivot.
And they pivoted.
Pivot. Yep.
And on top of that, both men really gave glory to Jesus through all of that. So I really enjoyed that part of the story.
Learn from, and it's so good for our audience to hear that. Is like,
it's not a coincidence.
It's gonna come. There's gonna be another downturn. Hopefully, it's
without
not as
a
bad
doubt.
as it was, but
without
it's
a doubt.
coming.
We're in a bit of a one, honestly.
Exactly.
As we're sitting here speaking,
You're exactly right.
There's rates have went up. Rates and banks are tighter with loans. Materials have went up extremely. In what I'm in, home building and drywall for home building and building houses. Wages haven't went up enough to go along with how much it costs to build a house now.
Yeah.
And then you take a 7% mortgage. It's definitely
hard.
And there again, if there's any main thing I would say, take away just on the sides of live within your means, okay, below your means, live within your means, live below your means. Don't get hung up on what you drive, or because I tell you what, the vehicle's nothing but a depreciating asset. But everybody, I like a nice, comfortable truck.
Unless you drive a 71 C10.
But
Just kidding.
I'm driving a 2015 Chevy truck that has 270,000 miles, and I love it. You know what I mean? But
It's a good one.
I will admit I have another truck, but that's what I work out of. And
You deserve it now.
yeah,
That delayed gratification.
I own it.
You
That's
delayed
right.
it.
That's right. And but and just don't be the guy that when you're working with credit, you never know when, because you're the guy that kept his powder dry and didn't buy everything, every shiny trinket along the way, and leverage it, finance it. Do as little financing as you can, because if you buy something and you own it, it's an asset then.
That's right.
I mean, it might not be a performing asset, but it's an asset you can liquidate to help you get through.
Exactly.
When you got debt on it and interest, closing cost on it, or origination fee from borrowing money, I mean, it takes a long way even to get that thing back to value. So you use your cash, because a lot of times, that helped us is the money we did wind up with, and the amount of capital we were able to, they brought us these jobs, but we still had to have some money to do it. You know, my business is bigger today because of the downturn.
Is it bigger than it's ever been?
Bigger than it's ever been. It's more profitable than it's ever been.
How many employees do you have as of today, roughly?
Well, as we use a lot of subcontractors too, but W-2 we have about 9, which is
That's a good number.
foreman, stuff like that. Nine, and then but we write about 200 checks a week to subcontractors who work exclusively for us every day. I mean, they expect work. They look from work from us. I got guys been working for me from Mexico that they're citizens, or they're here legally. I've got guys that were single that now have daughters that have graduated Kennesaw College that teach school in Paulding
Same
County.
subs.
Yeah, their daughters are
Nice,
school teachers in
dude.
Paulding
That's
County.
awesome.
I'm not kidding you. Families that do that started with me as single, and that's what I'm really proud of. Is stuff like that of being able to and that's investing in your people too. I've always tried to always go out and see the guys and break bread with them. A lot of people from some countries, that's a big thing to them. When you take time, sit down, eat with them,
That's a big deal.
invite them out, invite them to, just whether they say yes or no, investing in your people. They appreciate that and everything. But just, again, I can't imagine if I had let my debt load, even though if I hadn't had the money to do the work, didn't need all the money, but the money we had saved back, and I wouldn't have been able to rescue my business. You know what I'm saying? So.
And what you said, I've heard so many people that actually survived the storm of the '08 crash came out better, because it really probably thinned out your competition.
Yeah, it did. It did thin out the competition. I have some competition that is employees of mine now for 13, 15 years who just said, man, it just killed me, and we, we were able to pay them. Yeah. We were able to, and so by, investing back in the company, by not breaking my own company with my own personal debt situation or something. That's what I'm getting at is,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
is,
Basically, by being financially educated,
Yeah.
you've been able to make it through not only that, but also grow past it.
yeah, I just never been a person. So back to my humble, I embrace my humble raising, because I've never felt like that I never had that. I got to keep up with the Joneses complex or something. You know, I never. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I haven't built myself a nice home, but I mean, after
really nice.
41
Really
years,
nice. Yeah, I've seen
after
it too.
41 years, and you know, you when it pays off and all your hard work and efforts, then you can then you can build you a nice home,
Enjoy it,
and be sitting in there, hopefully, you know, in a lot better debt situation or how much you owe on your house, or maybe you can build it out, you know, and
Add
own it.
on, yeah. And what you had just said too about the humble beginnings and everything, man. As you get older, which obviously we have an age gap, but as I get older, I just find those beginnings to be such a blessing. I mean, they are, because it's like we had talked about with the kids and the wealth, and you figure out how to raise them, and even as we begin to raise one now, that beginning that I had is going to be so powerful for how I raise my children, and then also for myself to just continue to feel so humbled and blessed to what I have now, just because. And mine was, my parents gave me lunch money. I didn't have to go to school to eat. We had food. But it was just different.
Yeah.
And that humble beginnings means a
we're
lot.
in the delayed gratification stages, so it's so encouraging to hear you say, I felt like I was poor until I was 40, and we're kind of in that. You know, we have food, we're blessed beyond measure, but sometimes you're like, man, we make a lot of money, but we don't keep up because we got so many mouths to feed. So we're in that same phase of building, and it just takes time. And it's such a good reminder to hear that the delayed gratification is going to pay off.
Yes.
Tell you what,
It's going to pay off.
when that downturn hit and that 2.8 of bankruptcy came in there, I had 7 minor children under roof, all lit, and you know, that's where that panic attack came from.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, and never, you know, keep your desire to work hard. You know, I mean, I've always never been a guy that's ever left the house without my tool belt on my truck. You know what I mean? Because
You're ready to work.
because if I get there and the guy says, happens all the time, says, we got to have this right now. I can get you somebody over here tomorrow. I got to have it right now. There's nothing more that impresses that guy me to put my tools on and take care of that problem for him right there. And I don't know how that correlates in anybody's situation, but never be afraid to get your hands dirty for a client, ever how that, you know, get in there and take care of it, man.
Yeah.
That's,
Go that extra step for the person that's providing you a living.
100%.
And it'll make your business.
They'll use you forever and ever.
They'll make your business more.
100%.
One thing you said too, I want to say is this delayed gratification piece. This guy's been telling me this stuff for like 10 years. And when I was 17, I got a notebook that was about this big. And one day I was over at his house and he said, I said something like, you know, what y'all got going on over here, man? Like what's in that bank account or something? And I was like 17, and
I'm sure he said it just like that. Too. That's not an exaggeration.
And he was like, he said, you know, that's between my wife, me, and my accountant. You need to not ask me those questions. And then about 20 minutes later, he said, but you know what? If you will live below your means, you can make things happen.
You know, and that's the truth. I mean, because like I said, you're talking to a guy who was hungry, who didn't have any connection with banks. I mean, it was just putting together piece by piece every day, a piece of that, till it all those pieces made this big old wall that suddenly, you know, here we are. And I mean, it just really started, you know, I mean, it started years ago after the downturn. We paid our bills. That spread like wildfire too.
Oh yeah.
And then suddenly when guys were doing big jobs, all of a sudden, everybody building almost anything was giving us an opportunity to bid it if we wanted it, because they just, you know, good, strong, ethical businessmen find each other just like people do, and in business too.
That's right.
And let me be clear on one thing too. Is we talking about bunch of old poor boys and how that makes us turn. Okay, but let me tell you something. There also, don't let me miss out. There's a lot of guys who've had a lot that are good guys too.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to tell you that right now.
Amen.
There's a lot of that, but they were raised right. They were raised that that they weren't better than people. And so as I raise my children, I think about that. Now, these guys had something like my children, the way they are. I think about, wow, what made this guy that's my brother now in business and do things. And he came from,
Good,
had a nice house, this or this and that, but he's a good dude. He's a good guy. I can trust him.
There's a common denominator.
Yeah, there's a common
It's normally
denominator.
Jesus.
And he respects me. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt that is an integral piece. And, he respects me from where I come, and I respect him from where he came from too, being who he is.
Yeah.
That to like I made the decision, as I first said, when I came out of the Marietta Place housing projects, to be a good guy. Of all the there was some of the worst stuff in there you could ever see as a young man, and I think about these guys that had everything. They could have come out and just been someone who didn't give a guy like me a chance just because I was from Marietta Place or something. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? They had the ability to recognize, and they, in a lot of my situations, our people. I can talk to him today. I had lunch with a guy on the Marietta Square the other day. He's an attorney. He's actually Cobb County's Superior Court Judge, Tane Kell. Tane and I went to high school together. His father was my football coach, Corky Kell, which the Kell Classic. Corky Kell Classic, Kell High School. But Kell High School. But he was my high school football coach. Great mentor in my life. And coaches made okay then, but Tane did way better than my family. His family did. But and we were just sitting there and we were talking about some stuff. And he said, "Tim, Dad'd be so proud, of the decisions and who you've become, because you were definitely." He was just looking at me. He said, "You was one of the poorest old boys I knew." You know what I mean? And
that's so cool.
So that's what I say. There's just the integrity piece that we're men, because there's a lot of guys that have had a lot and they do business. This guy's had a lot. This guy's a bad guy. So they don't want nothing to do with that anymore. They want good.
That's right.
Good people. A lot of money's been made. A lot of companies are going strong that are good Christian businessmen, ethical people who look after one another instead of just self.
That's right. What's that saying? Birds of a feather flock together.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's so true.
We live by that, really.
But man, I can't thank you enough for everything you've shared. You've helped me tremendously. Just with multiple times, every time we meet, you bring value.
Well,
and
I appreciate it.
You just do it like it's second nature to you. I guess the last thing that I would say or ask is, kind of where you're at now. You've built so much. What you don't have to share everything you're going to do, but what's your plans for the future? Like, do you plan to maybe sell your business one day, or are you planning? What's the plans for your future?
Yeah. I was to that point, and actually, just being real transparent with you, we had a good offer, and then sat down with my people that worked for me so long, and they kind of told me what they felt like they had still left in the tank for the company, and so I at current time I'm gonna keep my business, and along with the fact that they've agreed to understand that I'm going to look at some other things to do along with my business, but maybe building a rental community or something. I have a vision of a reasonably affordable, nice rental community or something like that that has a spiritual side to it too, of maybe blessing some people with a situation, right, or a place to live as they get on their feet or something. Yeah. That's something Lord's put on my heart. So those type things, So,
man, well, dude, thank you so much for obviously what you provide value in my life, but over these past 10 years, but also just for the inspiration that you constantly give, and thanks for coming on here and sharing your story with us, man. It's powerful.
That was awesome.
I shed one tear while we did it, so.